Sales Wisdom Pod today, guys, with Gavin Tye. He's founder at Sales Market Fit. We're obviously going to discuss sales, B2B, and everything in between. Me and Gavin, pre-podcast, we're talking about stocks and bets and how VCs think. So already a fun conversation. Already can sense that this will be the home run I was looking for this week that I didn't get yet. Gavin, lots of pressure on you. Introduce yourself. Tell us a bit more about Sales Market Fit.
G'day, Charles. My name's Gavin. I'm the founder of Sales Market Fit. So my background is since 2015, I started working in an Australian startup here. And basically, it was a enterprise business where we were selling to government and water utilities and things like that. So it was such a unique value proposition. And when we would go and speak to our ideal buyers, they were so excited. It was a complete disruption of technology. But then that interest faded really quickly after the demo and the discovery, because the ticket price that we were selling was somewhere in the realm of $25,000 a month to $45,000 a month. So significant MRR. So people weren't taking action moving forward. And it really sent me on a journey to learn how organizations buy. And what I learned was product market fit isn't enough. It's not enough for large B2B startups or startups selling to large businesses to be able to win clients. I needed to be able to align my sales efforts with how my target audience was buying. And that really sent me on a journey to discover what sales market fit is. And I'm so surprised that no one else is really speaking about it. It's about aligning your sales efforts and leading your target clients through their decision-making journey in their business, which is actually really predictable, right? So, and to do that, we need to address some fundamental sales truths that exist that people just aren't paying attention to. And once you do that, your truths affect your beliefs, which affect your behaviors and then affect your process. Whereas normally people just try to implement a process without actually addressing the underlying truths. And that's what I'm out on a mission to do, is help other startups not have to go through the lessons I've learned, because they were extremely painful, but rewarding at the same time. But if I can just shave off 6, 12, 24 months of time learning for other founders and other startups, then I consider that a job well done.
So you hypothesize a sales strategy. Do you put that strategy to the test? Do you operate some kind of lab and test out your strategies there?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. So it's the framework. The framework is the same in any industry, but the data and how the actual nuance of how it works in each market is slightly different. So what we do is we create a hypothesis with my clients, and we'll go, right, at this stage, this is what we want to achieve. And I call it a holy shit moment, right? We can't move forward until the client has an aha moment or a holy shit moment, or if we need to significantly differentiate ourselves, otherwise we're just going to be put in the box with every other competitor. One of the first truths we need to actually address is people don't like salespeople, or they don't like founders trying to sell. So we can't sell. So we have to be different. We have to be consultative. We have to teach. We have to give insight. We have to open their eyes to problems they're not aware of. But it's all getting them to a starting point so we can repeat a repeatable sales process or repeatable framework within a business. And once you have a repeatable process, you can have efficiency. You can add people into that framework. You can scale faster. And as a founder, you can manage it from a 1,000-foot view while you're doing other things in the business. If you don't do that, you're creating a bespoke sales process for each client. It's very hard to scale because everything is slightly different. You don't know what's making progress, and you're putting too much faith into the client to get to the right decision without your guidance. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes. I see that on your website. You're quite consultative yourself. / always add value. Gary V calls it jab hook. I call it overflowing their glass with value. I like that analogy better. It's less violent. It's more abundant.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
you have your newsletter, you have your articles, you have your Twitter and YouTube. I'm following you there. Do you recommend your clients to do the same?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting concept. You hear it, it's not a unique thing to hear where people say add value in every call. But what's value? Value is that does not make sense in its own context. So to me, value is in the eye of the beholder. So it's only valuable if your client thinks it's valuable. So there are a few different ways we can add value in every interaction. One is we can teach them something, give them insight that they didn't have, so they have a new piece of information that they can go on and use in their business. We could save them time. We could actually create a set of tools and workshops to save time on the client side to make a decision or get to a conclusion that we need them to get to. If you're dealing with a business and there's multiple decision makers in that business, you can't really speed up the length of sale. You can't really speed up the sale. But what you can do is take out time on their side, and that's how you reduce the length of sale. You could give them cost benefit, like you could reduce the cost. That's another way to add value, and that's a really that's where most people go. Hey, if you buy me, I'll throw in these services for free. Or the other way that I like to add value is highlight their costs or their impacts of their current processes, or direct and indirect. People make decisions on revenue, on increasing revenue, reducing costs, and reducing risk, right? So I try to add value or create tools to measure each one of those three drivers. So because every client's different and they'll be skewed differently to a combination of all three, or just two of them, or just one of them. So I'll try to create tools to measure all three to a certain degree. So they go, hey, I'm risk orientated. Great. I've got a process to measure risk. So you move forward and we can alleviate that risk in opportunity.
Right. One of my favorite model lately has been to focus on the offer because it's all about product market fit. The niches, I mean, I have this outreach lab that allows me to test multiple niches for my clients and know what is good and what is not good. For them, it takes some time. So my first question before I get to like that, the podcast offers what I'm testing with my clients and it's super successful, is how do you sell experimentation and analysis and conclusions to clients? Because I mean, I might tell them that they will have X amount of meetings and we might talk about ROI, but most of the time it's not rubbish, but it's like being over yourself. It's not fully predictable because the market is constantly moving. They themselves are constantly moving. So what I began selling 1.5 years ago, because back in the days I would guarantee the meetings, is experimenting as a service, kind of, and getting them conclusions. Then once we have a potential product market fit, then we can scale. And then only if we're lucky, we could get meetings, It's kind of a complex product. And that's where we're seeing so few startups actually scale and hyper succeed out there, Airbnbs, Apple, and so forth. It is super complex. So how do you sell that?
Yeah, it's a really good point. So we can learn so many lessons from other industries, right? And I think if you want to do something, this is how I do a gut check on that. So if I want to go, hey, let's experiment, I go, well, what other industries experiment before they throw all their money into one thing? The mining industry does it, right? If you want to go and look for gold, you just don't go dig into a wall. You go and explore different parts of the earth and you go, hang on a sec, that looks like, I'm not a gold miner, but I think if they find quartz, they go, okay, that might be where gold was. I'm going to go dig there. Okay, well, we're getting a bit of gold there. I'm going to throw in a little bit more effort. Okay, we found a gold deposit. Okay, let's drill there. But if you just went and dug everywhere and said, hey, I don't have the money so just go into this location, it could be a fool's errand. So we need to test. And it's how other industries do it, and it works for them. So you have to do it. It's necessary because there are macro drivers or political drivers or economic drivers in certain markets. They can be in one state to another. There could be an economic driver that we're just not aware of, or a pressure or something that it's very difficult to get across. So you want to actually experiment and see if you can get into that wave, or the wave of the economic driver or the problem that presents in that space. And if you can get on that wave, then throw more resources into it. But you have to experiment. And you don't necessarily, if you've got a long pipeline, you're not waiting for that sale, but you want a reaction that you go, hey, if I present the information like that, a positive reaction would be this. And if I get that positive reaction, I'm going to go, okay, can I repeat it? Because sometimes it can be an anomaly, and that one reaction might not be true. So you want to make sure you can get it over and over again, and then start throwing more resources in. And I do exactly the same thing. Like, I'll test multiple markets and go, okay, well, that didn't work. Turn that one off. That worked. And then just start throwing more resources into those. And it's exactly the same philosophy that you're saying.
It's really wonderful when you think about it, because even when it's wonderful and could be potentially frustrating for some people, because even when you hit goal, it doesn't guarantee that tomorrow you'll still have the same success. Another good analogy is like surfing waves, right? Are you surfing a tsunami, or are you surfing this little baby wave, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I've been cracking my head open the past 7 years to try to build the algorithm and the machine and the lab to kind of get to these product market fit. And even to this day, I mean, I'm on the right path, but I dream of that AI machine that can scale and test and tell me in real time if that market is hot or not, if there's green in that market or if it's red. You know, do you also dream about that at night?
A little bit, but I think about it in short, medium, and long-term strategies. So short-term strategies are the ones that can turn on and off real quick, right? You're trying a market, then they can go cold really quickly. But I think to get that hockey stick growth, if you can supplement the medium term and the longer term strategies with the short term strategy, and you're only doing short term until the medium term, like SEO or something else kicks in that's more medium term, but the longer term strategy. Look at Elon Musk and Gary Vee, and their long term strategy is being an authority in their space, right? They don't need to do outbound, I would imagine. They're getting leads coming in left, right, and center because they're actually that long-term strategy, and they're less. I think those markets where people come to you, when they're coming to you and you're not doing outbound, I think then you transcend the fickleness of the market, right? Because people are coming to you, they're finding you. So I think about the more short, medium, and long term, because I can control that a little better. But it would be fantastic if you could have an AI machine and actually turn the market on red or hot, like green or red. But then if we have the AI machine, then our competitors have it too, right? So then that quickly doesn't become a competitive advantage. So
how do you test at scale? Like, what's your machine like? Mine is mostly cold email. I also use LinkedIn outreach, and my research of this market is somewhat refined, not so much by books nowadays, but mostly interviewing folks on this podcast. And we're going to get to this strategy. But what do you use to test this market? Because cold email, I can get the open rates, I can get the reply rates. I can see almost instantly if a market is hot or not.
yep.
What are you using?
So first and foremost, I map out my strategy. So for me personally, I've got maybe 3 or 4 strategies that I can do as like just me individually. Then what I'll do is, statistically speaking, people aren't going to be looking to buy exactly what you're selling at that point in time, right? So that it's really important, even in a podcast, to know that they're really not going to be looking for what you're selling today. So what I do is I try to keep in contact with them, either get them in my ecosystem to add value to them over time, to stay top of mind, probably like what you're doing with the podcast. But then my goal is either to get them to a newsletter or some kind of regular webinar. So when they are ready, then I would have built up that authority in that realm, like that medium-term strategy. So then they'll go, hey, I need to speak to Gavin, and then they'll come, and hopefully they'll come to me. So I map it out, and I use Lucidchart to do that. Like, I'll go LinkedIn. My primary goal is to see if they need any help. If not, I'll try to get them they'll stay into my world, and then I'll give them posts, but I'll map it out and make sure I'm all my actions are driven to how I've mapped it out. So,
and your thoughts on the podcast strategy? Because me, it's one of the best offers, like you can, another interview I had before you today, the guy has a cold email agency just like myself. He goes reply based also in his first emails. Like, do you have that problem? Do you have that pain? Do you think this solution can fit you? I really much like that. But me, I start the funnel even higher, and I ask people if they would love to go on this podcast. After the podcast is done, we've known each other. We've spent 30 minutes in the same virtual room, and it's a nice intro. It's a warm intro, and most of these folks will tell me no in another scenario. No to my demos, no to even this cold email. They're not open to answer to someone that they don't know if they have this pain or not. They don't trust me enough. So I've been using this podcast not only for myself, but for some of my clients, and I've known more success than any other methods out there. What do you think about it?
Yeah, look, I think it's a great lead generation strategy, to be honest. Like, if you could do another layer onto that, like I would maybe try to filter some, like you're doing a lot of podcasts a week, right? So you're building up an audience. I think about like 3 or 4 months down the track, if they forget who you are, or they forget, people are busy, I would even suggest maybe trying to filter them to a LinkedIn group where you can actually put everyone in a group there. And then even later on, maybe do a panel discussion. Like if you get some interesting people, and do another panel discussion webinar, but then you can post specific content to that group and further increase your your touch points with those people and facilitate introductions, and you be the connector, because then you stay well top of mind then, right? You're adding I don't know, you seem to be doing a lot of podcasts per week, right? But you're adding 5 people into that group a week that are interesting individuals, right? You're adding value. But then play that out for 2 years, right? You're doing 5 people a week times 2 years, which is about 500 people, thereabouts. That's a really valuable group where you're the authority in that space. Like that cannot be bad for you to do it in that. That's molding a short-term strategy, or a short to medium into a medium to longer term strategy, right? That's what I would consider. I don't know anyone to do that. I don't know anyone that's doing that. And I'm sure they are, I just don't know.
Yeah, I have masterminds that I need to push myself in the back and start implementing again, because I kind of let go of my mastermind. Mastermind is we meet once a month. It's some sort of closer community. There would be a LinkedIn chat with like 4 members plus a Zoom room every month, 30 minutes. So I have that in my back end that I need to start implementing. It's free, right? They can decide to upgrade if they want higher quality members, the cream of the crop. And the newsletter, I haven't found an automation yet to be like, oh, we're done with this call. Now subscribe them to my newsletter, which is on Substack. But yeah, I guess I can hire someone that could program an automation for that, so that we don't lose touch, because the LinkedIn connection's already done. I try to also manually, like get in touch with you on Twitter and so forth. Actually, I could literally subscribe you manually after this podcast is done, my lazy ass self. It's funny sometimes because our brain, it always finds a way to kind of not do the work. Let's automate that, but let's start manually, let's start non-scalably. What do you think?
Yeah. So there's no right and wrong way. Like the challenge is if I get all these ideas, right? I go, do this, do this, do this, do this. But I can never follow through over long periods of time, because eventually that effort's going to pay off into doing other work. So what happens with your lead gen is most people go, well, that's your lead gen effort. And then the results come in on after about 2 or 3 months on the backside. And because you get busy, your lead gen drops off. And then a couple of months later, your lead gen drops off. It follows. So now for myself, I've just gone right back to being simple. Like I'm only posting on LinkedIn, connecting with founders on LinkedIn, trying to add value to their world. Then I'll start running webinars about sales strategy, adding value, all that kind of stuff regularly to my network. And then if things come out of the bottom of it, so be it. But I'm confident that my value proposition is unique, and they'll find a way if they're looking for it. So, but it does take time, right? And for anyone listening, it takes a lot of time. It takes a bit of time for your lead generation efforts to start producing results. And that uncertainty, or that quiet time, is really, really you second guess yourself. You go, is this right? I'd imagine for yourself, right, with your clients, you're like, every single time you're probably going, oh, is this right? Like, am I doing the right thing? And then it starts kicking in after a period of time after, but it's always worrying.
Yeah, most fishermen won't throw their rods, and the ones that throw them, most of them will get discouraged after 10 minutes. So start the thing, stay the course.
Yep.
Gavin, can you tell us where to find out more information about yourself?
Yeah, look, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Gavin Tye, or I've got a website called salesmarketfit.co. It's actually been redesigned. By the time this comes out, I would imagine it's up and running, the new website's up and running. But the main thing is here, and what I would say, just to round out what we're saying, is think about your client. Like, everything's about getting your client to a decision, to helping them to buy, or framing the message to them. And that's the number one thing about finding your sales market fit is, we cannot sell until someone decides to buy. So help them get to a buying decision as quick as you can, whatever that works in your market. So lead gen, whatever that is, just help them get to a buying choice.